Representative Bowers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Phil, for being here today. I am certainly a fan, and, I know that your show was a spinoff from Oprah, so I'm certainly a fan, been a fan for a long time, and I will say to you that I am glad to have this privilege to ask you some questions because we know you ask the hard questions. You mentioned that a little bit ago, and before I get to my question, my pastor, Richie Butler, said to tell you hello and that let you know he's my pastor. But I'm so glad I get to ask you the questions and I didn't get called to your show for you to ask me the questions.
Fair enough.
But I want you, if you can, to take us back, and I promise you I will watch it. I have not watched the interview with Robert Roberton, but can you take us back to that time when you did have a chance to talk to him, since we won't get to hear from him today in this chamber? And I just want to know, because you mentioned, and we heard this before, that he was very flat in his responses, and we do know that he's on the spectrum. So I just wanted to know if you can share a little bit more about that time and moment and what those answers, because you said you asked him some pretty hard questions, and what his responses were like, and what, was there remorse there? How did those responses come out? I would just like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yes, I will. When I sat down with him, the Pulaski unit is one of the best run units in the United States, I have to say. And I've been to many prisons and talked to many convicted murderers, and that unit is, I have to say, it's really well done. They treat their prisoners with dignity and respect, and they do things the right way there. And when I'm permitted to come in, I respect their rules as well, because everything runs. Order is really important to keep everything running the way it should. And when they tell you that you're going to have an hour, I really try to respect that. And so I sat down with him in the beginning and said, listen, we're on a time clock, so I'm going to forego a lot of small talk and jump right into this if it's okay with you. And he said, certainly. So we jumped right into it, and I said, you're days away from being executed, and I want to know how you feel about this. And I started asking him about things, and I asked him some things like, are you bitter? How do you feel about this? Are you angry? Are you bitter? How do you feel? And and I'm spending as much time hearing what isn't said as what is said, how he's answering, what his eye contact is. And he's very very flat and very robotic, and he says he's not bitter at this point. It's been 21 years, and I guess you can stay angry for just so long. And he says he's really not, and he spends a lot of time in his Bible and reading the Word. And I asked him, I said, you've been in trouble before. Tell me about those sort of things. I wanted to see if he tried to deflect or minimize those things. He was very forthcoming about it. He said that he had gotten into drugs at one time, and that caused him to make a lot of bad choices, and he got in trouble for it and seemed to feel like he should have, that he did things he shouldn't do, violated his probation, got time added to that for it. And again, he didn't try to minimize or whatever. He was straight up about that. I asked him about his relationship with Nikki, and he said that he had only been around her for a couple of months and that she was pretty standoffish with him and seemed to kind of be afraid of him, but that they had started to break that down some, and that there was some warmth, and she started to sit in his lap and let him hold her and that sort of thing. I asked him what he did when he was angry, for example. He said he went off by himself and spent time alone. I asked him if he ever put his fist through a wall or slammed doors or broke things or pushed people or yelled and screamed and whatever. And he said, I just kind of go off by myself. I don't, whatever. I gave him some cognitive challenges. I asked him some simple things. Like I asked him, interpret this saying for me, shallow brooks are noisy. He had no idea. I said, still waters run deep. How about that? No idea. I said, if I gave you a screwdriver, a flat screwdriver, you could screw a screw in and screw a screw out with it. What else could you do with it? Couldn't think of one other thing you could do with a screwdriver. Nothing. I gave him some items to remember and asked him to recall those, not after an hour, but after about 15 minutes. I think he got 1 out of 5. And so he was having trouble. Of course, he's under a lot of stress, too, and that doesn't help. And then I asked him straight up, did you hurt this child? And I really watched him, and his blink rate's about 12, 13 per minute. You go under stress, if you ask a relevant question, people are lying that blink rate will often go to 70 or 80 in a hurry. He didn't change at all. He didn't color up. He didn't stutter or start, changing his patterns at all. Just no, no, and no. And I asked him if he thought he had had a fair trial, and he said no. His lawyer kept saying, shaking baby, and I told him, why are you doing that? That's not true. I don't want you saying that. But he said, well, I'm trying to save you from first-degree murder. That's what they're charging you with. But he said, well, I don't want you saying that. And he said, well, just, sit down. And he was very hopeful that he was going to get some kind of relief here and not be executed. And he thinks he deserves to be free.
Thank you for that. And thank you for giving us a snapshot of what that interview was like. And I certainly will be going back to look at it and view it. But and thank you for asking him questions, like you said, the hard questions, but then certainly some simple questions. So, and sharing that with us, I really appreciate it. And I have to say, I'm so glad to be on asking you the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.